Okay, cool. So we're just going to carry on with our rigging. And so we're going to mirror this across, and we probably want to rename these. So I'm going to call this right shoulder joint. Yeah, I have to call it something long. I'm just going to call that. Call this elbow. It's really important that you do name these, otherwise if you need to find them, you won't be able to. Well, you'll be able to find them, it just might be a bit of a pain. So I'm just going to go around all these, and what shall I call this? Call this little one. Control C, Control V, and call this little 2. And call this little 3. And same for this, but we'll call this middle 1. Just going to Control C, paste that in there so I don't have to type it in every time. And we probably could find a better way of naming this, but well, there is a better way, but it's nice to be thorough. I'll just call this right index. Control C. This one's thumb. So I should call it thumb. Just means when we do mirror this over, we don't have to rename it again. Cool. So we've named all that. And we want to, and we actually need to do it to both. So I'm going to bring right shoulder up. And what's this cluster? I'm going to hide this cluster. Don't need that. I'll put that down here. I kind of kept these, so I can just delete them at the end probably. Got my hip and hip joint. I'm going to bring this down. Not that it matters the order, but so I'm just going to select. I'm not selecting the. I'm just selecting the top bone. And I'm going to go to rigging, skeleton, and you should have mirror joints. So I'm going to open that up. You should get this, and I want it. So I want it to mirror across the Y and Z. And I don't want to rename this, so I want it to look for names with right in and replace it with left. So now basically I won't have to rename that. If I click apply, that will now mirror it across, and it's renamed everything to left. So I'm going to bring this up here. And if I select both these and select the origin, they should both come in together. Cool. So they're both, even though these are not in the same sort of axis, should work. So if we haven't done, I can't remember the last time I've done rigging, to be honest. I don't do it that often, but all I remember is if these are sort of doing that in when you've selected them, it should be okay. Okay, cool. Let's do the same for this one. We don't need to change it, we just click apply. And now we've got our left hip joint. Cool, so now we've pretty much duplicated everything we need. So now let's just start to bring some of this together. So, 3 minutes. Cool, that's not taking too long. So I'm just going to go show polygons. I think I've hidden that leg. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to work on this side first. So I kind of decided against skinning because I want to actually, well, we could still skin it. We'll keep this as a separate object though. But yeah, for this, I think it's probably going to be easier if we actually just use a parenting onto the bones. So I'm just going to go to my X-ray. And I've got this bit here. And I actually don't want to, put this on my shoulder joint, because if I do, it's going to move. I don't want, if I select both of them, press E, I don't want these to move together like that. And that's what will happen if we put it all on one joint. I want these to move independently of each other. I want that to be able to move around there whilst this sort of, whilst this only sort of rotates around and this bit. Why can't I get in there? And this bit rotates up through there. So it's kind of keeping in the sort of mechanical guidelines. And so I want this to actually be on the bit that's going to control the body, which is our, whatever this one is, our torso joint, and I'm going to press P. So now on our torso joint, when we select that, we've got that. We've not added the others yet, so we'll do that probably afterwards. And yeah, I'm going to now do, now I've got that in there. Oh, it's got transforms on. Let's, oh no, see, that's, it's bringing in the transforms from the bone, sorry. Press P. That's absolutely fine. Cool, so now we want to start loading these onto the actual arm bones. So I'm going to hide my hip, so which one's this? The right. That's the leg. I want my right arm. Cool, so we only want our shoulder, elbow, and wrist for now. Then we'll do our fingers. So I'm going to select this bit and go to my shoulder joint and press P. And now that's inherited all the stuff on there, and that should, if I select my shoulder joint, that will now join on there. And I'm just going to keep doing this for all the bits that I want to be controlled by the shoulder. So now when I select this, that's all working nicely. So now for this, I want you to do this for the elbow. So if I select this one needs to go into the elbow joint. So I'm going to press that, select P. And then the same with this one. If I press P, so now if I select my elbow joint, my bits are moving around with it. And then I'm just going to keep going through and doing it for the correct pieces. And that's the wrist joint, so yeah, let's put that under the wrist. P. So if I select my wrist joint, that's now rotating around nicely. And we'll just go through and do all these bits. So this is now on the thumb joint, and we'll add that to the thumb joint, press P. Add this one to the thumb joint and press P. And we'll just keep doing this until we go down to the second thumb joint. And it's always good to sort of check these, check they're not doing anything funky. Cool. And yeah, you just want to go through and do all those bits. And just minimize that whilst we're done. I know there's lots of, this is effectively just parenting rigging. We will do some bit more other stuff after we've done this, but it's kind of like a really basic rudimentary rig. We're not doing anything complicated at all. Just doing enough to get our model going, basically, and moving around. Just like that, middle joint, press P. Make sure you're putting them on the correct joints as well. It's definitely worth like checking that your things are working as well. There's nothing strange going on. And obviously, like, you probably might want to actually, we might lock those in the end because we don't want that rotating, that we only want it rotating one axis. So we can do the locking later on, I think. Little joint, press P. And we should be done. Cool. So while we're here, we may as well just do the... No, let's leave it. It should be fine. Cool. So now we've made a very, very basic sort of parenting rig. And if we just select our shoulder joint, we can see that's controlling everything. Then we select our elbow joint. Ooh. And that's controlling everything there. And our wrist joint is controlling, and thus, yeah, all of that. So now we've done that. We're doing this. We'll do that bit after we've sorted out our IK. So we could effectively just put controllers on these and God, and be fine with it. And you just model, you just animate it in the sort of way like doing it like this. It's up to how you like animating. For this, we're actually going to add an IK on it, so it makes it a bit easier. So if you haven't used an IK before, it's easier to show you once it's done. So it just makes the movement a little bit easier. So I'm just going to go show polygons so we can just see our bones. And I'm just going to save this. Save scene as. We've already got 7.1. Yeah, let's just replace it. Cool. So we're going to create an IK for this. So the first thing that we want to do is go to our rigging, skeleton, and where are we? Create IK handle. And that will give us a tool here to create our IK. So we want to select, basically we want to select the anchor point first, which is going to be our shoulder. Then we want to select the control point, which will be our wrist. And now what that's done is created an IK handle. So now if I move this around, you can sort of see what it's doing. It's sort of done a very clever mathematical tween of the elbows moving and how they would move retrospectively to their size. And you can see how that could be useful in animation. Now you'd only have to really actually just move the hand instead of have to adjust the elbow all the time. So if we bring back our polygons and we can see what it's doing. So we're kind of not getting what we want here. Obviously this is bending in the wrong way. And we want it to bend, for now we want to bend it in this way, or at least in a way that's useful for us. So I'm going to just turn off my polygons again. And what we need to do, we need to make a pole vector, which is basically a control for telling our IK to point towards our elbow joint. And that's going to be another thing that's going to be so much easier to show you what it does. It allows you to control the angle of the elbow. So I'm just going to create a NURB circle. Select my elbow joint, then my NURB circle, constraint, and point. I'm just going to delete that. And I think we've got our NURBS curves turned off. So scale that up or leave it as is. We're not really going to use it that much. We just want to bring it out there. And I'm just going to go to my polymodding, freeze transforms and delete the history. And I'm just going to call this right elbow pole vec. Right elbow pole vector. Cool, and this is pretty simple to set up. So I always get these wrong, but I'm going to select the curve first, then I'm going to select my IK. And if I go to constraint, pole vector, and I don't think there's much in here apart from weight, I'm going to select apply. And because it's done some stuff, let's rotate this around. But now if I look at my IK, we can see that that's actually working. Now if I go to my show polygons, and you can sort of see it's some stuff has gone a bit funky, but we're bending in a way we want. So let's go up to our wrist joint. And we can't rotate any of this now because it's all under the IK. But we can rotate our wrist joint because that's below the IK. So I'm just going to go minus 90. I'm just going to freeze the transforms on that. So if it has absolute tweaks, it should be fine. So now it's flat. So our next problem is that now we've got our hands right, but now this is sort of flipped around. And I'm sure there's something in your IK that you can, in fact, let's have a look. I bet there's something in there that you can pole vector constraint, rotate order, enable rest position. So it'll probably be something in there, but I've not used this in a while, so I I don't want to spend time you watching me figure it out when I can just do this. So I'm going to select the thing that I want to rotate. I'm going to right click and select face. I'm just going to select the faces so I can now adjust this under the geometry, not the actual transform. I want to select my rotate, and I want to go to my step snap, turn it to relative, and I want to turn this to 90 degrees. So now when I rotate this, it's not going to move until it snaps to 90 degrees. And now I've edited that without changing transforms. I freeze that. And I'm going to do the same for this one. Ooh, not the elbow joint. I want to select the geo, face, and then rotate that round. So let's freeze transforms, delete the history off that, do the same with that. Cool. So now if we select that IK handle, it's doing things that we want. It's rotating the correct way, doing everything that we want. And I don't know if this, and this does actually rotate how we want it as well. So that's kind of nice. So you have that. Cool. So we probably don't want to play with that. We'll just leave that as is. We probably could have pulled that out a little bit more, but how does this affect it? Cool, we'll just leave that as it is for now. Cool, so now our next challenge is to get this working how we want it. And because we've got it separately, so if we had this on the bone, this would just follow it, and it would kind of look a bit rubbish. So we want to figure out a way that we can actually have this work in a sort of more of a mechanical way with it. So the first thing that we'll do, I'll bring this back to its rest position. I'm going to create another curve. And I want to constrain it to where have you gone? Right shoulder joint. Nose curve. Constrain. Point. Apply. Cool. Delete that. Select on node circle and press R. I'm just going to scale it up. Snap it again in 90 degrees. And now I'm just going to make sure I freeze the transforms and delete the history. This is just going to be, we'll probably hide this one after. It's just going to be a helper sort of thing. Cool. So then now I want to create a locator. So I'm going to go create locator, and I can select my curve, my locator, constrain, and point. So it's in the middle of that as well. So the reason for the locator and the curve is that I want to be able to control this with multiple constraints. And obviously you can't stack, once you've got constraints on a rotation and stuff like that, you can't really put any more on. But if we put this under a parenting of a group, we can sort of put two constraints on it. So I'm going to push this out, and I'm going to push this out. I'm actually going to snap it to about here. It doesn't matter if it's super accurate, but this is going to be, I'm going to freeze the transforms into history. This is going to be what we want to aim at, because we want this to stay locked into this sort of position. We don't want it to aim further out here because it might drift off a bit, so we want to keep it as tight as possible. And it's probably quite hard to describe, I'm not very good at that, but we want this, basically when we're using the aim for this to stay in here, we want it to aim at the bit we want it tightest to. So basically I want that to stay in here, so it's not going to get further out with distance or slow down. So, because obviously the further out that is, yeah, you'll see basically. Cool. So we also want to make, because this is going to be sort of under our it's not going to be under our our shoulder. So first of all, let's select that and press P and get it under our NURB circle. So now we can use our NURB circle to control rotation, but we kind of don't want it to be on the shoulder. So we need to have this NURB circle under our torso joint. So if we press P, we've now got our NURB circle. We'll call this NURBS. We'll call this shoulder fix curve, just so we know what it is. That's going to be hidden. And now what we also need to do is add our locator, to it. Locator to the torso joint, press P. So now under your torso joint you should have the fixed curve and the locator. We'll call this shoulder fix lock. Cool. So now if we select our torso joint, oh, we got snap on, so that's why it wasn't working. So let's turn that off. We can see that everything that we want to stay in our torso is there, and we'll add this in afterwards, so don't worry too much about that. So now we need to figure out what we're going to aim to and what we need to constraint to. So first of all, we want to make sure our clavicle, I'm calling it the clavicle, it's like the shoulder. So I guess this is kind of the shoulder bit, and I'm calling this the clavicle. I don't know why. It just feels like it's like a secondary shoulder. So I want to add an aim constraint for that. So I'm going to select my shoulder fix lock. Then just press Q to turn it off. Then I'm going to select my geo, because you need to select the locator, so what it wants to look at. Then you need to select the object that's going to be looking. So I'm going to constrain aim. And I'm going to constrain all axes, but only on the Z. So if I click apply, undo that. Apply, offset, apply. Hopefully this should now follow us up and down. And it does, which is exactly what we want. Because we want, so effectively, we don't want this rotation at all, because obviously that disappears in there. We want the rotation to come from the bone. So with that now locked to the torso joint, that will never sort of rotate further out. So we've done the sort of first part of the rotation. So now we need to let's actually see what this looks like when we do the IK. And makes no difference yet, because we still need to do the orientation. So what we want to do now is we can select our actual mesh, or I think we can select our bone, but I'm going to keep it off the bone. We'll see. We'll try it. So I'm going to select my mesh, and now I'm going to select my curve. So this now means that I can now put another whole load of constraints on it, and they're going to kind of work together. So I'm going to go constrain, and I'm going to use an orient, and I'm going to constrain all axes. And I shouldn't have to do maintain offset, because it should be exactly, oh, maybe I do need to do maintain offset. Oh, let's close that. They should be exactly the same, but anyway, let's go orient, maintain offset, and apply. Ew, why is, oh, that's because I need to, so I accidentally selected that, and you can't when it said it had already applied, because I'd selected the wrong thing. So I need to select the mesh, then the curve. If I can constrain, orient, maintain offset, and all axis, and click apply, nothing should happen, which is good. That means it's staying in the same place. I really hope that this works. So now if I pull this in, you can see now how that's following there, which is great. It's exactly how we want. But does it follow it up? And it is. Sort of. Where's our... Cool, so it is doing it. You see how now, not the greatest example, see how, let's turn our X-ray off. And obviously we can go a bit too far, so we don't want to do that. We want, you see how these are now moving independently of each other to give it a nice sort of look. And that's kind of what we wanted to do. So now let's undo that, so we bring it back to 0. Maybe if I pull this out, it should, yeah, so that's looking pretty nice. We pretty much got exactly what we want. So what time are we on now? 26 minutes. So let's save that. Save scene as, and 72. And what we can do is, let's leave it as that, and we'll move on to the next one, so they're not super long. But yeah, we'll do the leg next. And yeah, we'll do the most complex bits first, because it's going to be pretty simple. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button, and subscribe for more like this, and thanks for watching.